Under the searing New Mexico sun, Highway 66, usually a ribbon of endless traffic and routine commutes, came to an unexpected halt. Drivers, once immersed in their own thoughts and hurried destinations, now stared in disbelief at a tiny, trembling creature on the side of the road. This was no ordinary Animal Crossing, it was a young bobcat kitten, barely more than a few months old, standing its ground in the middle of the highway. Its soft, dusted fur shimmered in the heat, and as it darted nervously, one detail immediately caught the attention of Officer Olivia Grant. A small, unfamiliar tracking device was fastened around its leg. Olivia, a seasoned highway patrol officer with over a decade of service in New Mexico's rugged landscapes, had encountered many unusual calls in her career. Yet nothing had prepared her for this. The bobcat's behavior was both erratic and purposeful, it wasn't merely trying to cross the road but seemed to be beckoning for something more. The animal's wide, intelligent eyes and its persistent gaze toward the wilderness beyond the highway hinted at a secret it desperately wished to share. Olivia pulled her cruiser to a safe stop behind the line of halted vehicles. With her heart pounding, she stepped out into the shimmering heat of the desert. The air was thick with tension and a sense of urgency. As she approached the small creature, she could feel the palpable weight of a mystery unfolding before her eyes. Nearby, a small group of curious onlookers had gathered, their faces a mix of concern and wonder. A few had even taken out their phones to capture the moment, but Olivia knew this was no time for distractions, the situation demanded action. Squatting down, Olivia carefully observed the bobcat kitten. The tracking device, secured around its leg, was unlike any wildlife collar she had ever seen. It bore a series of numbers and letters that suggested it was not meant for tracking a wild animal at all, but rather a device intended for emergency use. Her mind raced, who could have attached this marker to a wild animal, and why? Without hesitation, Olivia radioed in the incident. Unit 412 to dispatch, we have an unusual wildlife incident on Highway 66 near mile marker 78. I'm observing a juvenile bobcat with a non-standard tracking device. Requesting immediate assistance from the Regional Wildlife Response Team. Within minutes, a rugged white pickup pulled up behind Olivia's cruiser. Out stepped Dr. Anthony Rivera, a veteran wildlife biologist renowned for his expertise in animal behavior and rehabilitation. His weathered face and steady eyes betrayed decades of experience in the wild, and his calm demeanor was a reassuring contrast to the unfolding mystery. Officer Grant, Anthony greeted, extending a hand as he approached. What exactly do we have here? Olivia quickly briefed him. We've got a bobcat kitten on the highway with what appears to be an emergency tracking marker. It's not typical for wildlife collars. I've never seen anything like this. Anthony's eyes narrowed as he inspected the device with his binoculars. This isn't one of our standard tags, he murmured, carefully reading the inscription. It appears to be an emergency locator, usually issued to hikers or adventurers in our state parks. This is very peculiar for a wild animal to be wearing. As the two exchanged concerned glances, reports began filtering in over the radio. Several motorists had noted strange behavior from the bobcat, a sort of persistent, almost frantic motion towards the distant, rugged desert. It was as if the creature was deliberately leading someone or something. Realizing that time was of the essence, Anthony suggested, "Officer, let's follow the animal. It might be trying to guide us to something significant. Keep a safe distance, but let's see where it leads." Olivia and Anthony, now united in purpose, followed the cautious bobcat as it made its way toward the edge of the highway and into the vast, sun-baked desert. The landscape around them was both beautiful and harsh, a sprawling canvas of red rocks, sparse vegetation, and distant mountains that shimmered in the heat. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of suspense and hope, as if the very land was holding its breath. As they ventured deeper into the wilderness, the duo noted subtle signs along the path, disturbed underbrush, fresh footprints, and scattered personal belongings. At one point, Olivia discovered a torn strap from a backpack and a discarded water bottle, evidence that someone had been here recently, perhaps in a hurry. The clues pointed toward a struggle, a human presence, desperate and now nearly lost in the vast desert. Anthony's experienced eyes caught sight of fresh boot prints, indicating a size consistent with an adult hiker. "These prints are very recent," he observed. "We might be on the trail of someone in distress." Their journey led them to a clearing bordered by a steep ravine, a sudden drop that cut through the otherwise open desert. Here, the bobcat Kitten, now moving with deliberate urgency, paused at the edge and looked back at them as if to signal that they should continue forward. The tension grew with every cautious step they took toward the ravine. At the bottom of the clearing, partially concealed by a fallen tree, lay the motionless form of a man. It was Daniel Harper, a well-known local hiker and wildlife rehabilitator who was also deeply involved in experimental conservation projects. His body language was frail, and his eyes, though barely open, held a glimmer of recognition when Anthony called out his name. "Daniel?" Anthony's voice was gentle yet insistent. "Can you hear us?" Daniel stirred weakly, raising a trembling hand in a feeble wave. I'm here," he managed to croak, his voice barely audible over the desert silence. "I'm stuck." Olivia and Anthony quickly assessed the situation. Daniel's leg was trapped under a heavy branch, and his face was etched with pain and dehydration. The desert's relentless heat had taken its toll on him, leaving him vulnerable and isolated. Olivia's heart sank as she crouched beside him, her training immediately shifting into compassionate care. "Hang on, Daniel," she said softly, offering him a bottle of water. "We're here to help." After a few moments of reassured silence, Daniel began to explain what had transpired. He had been out on a solo hike, testing the capabilities of a unique rehabilitation program he'd been developing for local wildlife. His project aimed to bridge the gap between wild instincts and human intervention, an effort to see if certain wild animals could be gently guided to seek human assistance in emergencies. Daniel had chosen a young bobcat, whom he affectionately named Luna, as his trial subject. "I attached my emergency locator to Luna's harness," Daniel admitted, his voice wavering with both pain and pride. "If anything happened to me, I hoped she'd lead someone to my location. I never imagined she'd be the one to save me." Olivia and Anthony exchanged astonished glances. The very animal that had caused such a commotion on the highway was now the linchpin in Daniel's survival. Daniel continued, his eyes growing brighter with a mix of relief and wonder. "Luna isn't just a wild animal, she's become my partner in this rehabilitation project. I trained her to understand that roads mean help. If she's ever in distress, she'll come find a human. Today, she did just that." Anthony carefully examined the tracking device still clutched in Daniel's hand. "The marker number matches the one on Luna's collar," he confirmed. "This is extraordinary, Daniel. You've inadvertently set up a system where the wild and human worlds can communicate in the direst moments." The revelation stirred a deep sense of awe in all of them. In the heart of the unforgiving desert, a bond had formed, one that defied conventional understanding of the divide between nature and humanity. Olivia felt her pulse quicken with a mix of adrenaline and hope. "We need to get you out of here, Daniel," she urged. "Hold on." Working swiftly and with unwavering determination, Olivia, Anthony, and a hastily summoned rescue team carefully extracted Daniel from the precarious position. Despite his injuries, a compound fracture in his leg and signs of severe dehydration, Daniel's spirit shone through his pain. His eyes sparkled with gratitude as he watched Luna, the little bobcat, linger nearby, her gaze unwavering. As the rescue team secured Daniel on a stretcher, Anthony placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've done something remarkable, Daniel," he said. "Luna's actions are proof that the wild has its own way of reaching out to us." In the following hours, as Daniel was transported to a nearby medical center, news of the rescue spread rapidly throughout the region. Local media outlets, initially drawn by the bizarre traffic delay, now buzzed with the heartwarming tale of a missing hiker rescued by his very own bobcat companion. The story ignited conversations about the deep, inexplicable connections between humans and wildlife, a relationship that, until now, had often been seen as one of predator and prey or mere coexistence. Daniel's recovery was slow but steady. Over the next few weeks, his ordeal and the miraculous intervention of Luna became the catalyst for a groundbreaking initiative. Dr. Rivera, inspired by the events, collaborated with local conservationists and state authorities to launch the Wildlife Ambassador Program. This innovative program aimed to showcase animals like Luna, who, due to unique circumstances, straddled the line between the wild and the domestic. These creatures would serve as ambassadors for their species, educating the public about conservation and fostering a deeper respect for nature. Months later, on a bright spring morning, Olivia found herself standing in the newly opened Wildlife Ambassador Center on the outskirts of Santa Fe. The center was a sprawling facility designed to mimic the natural habitats of the local fauna while providing an educational and interactive experience for visitors. At the heart of the center was Luna, now grown into a sleek, powerful bobcat with an unmistakable regal air. Her golden eyes, ever watchful, roamed the enclosure with a graceful yet assertive presence. During a special ceremony, Daniel, now on the mend and using a supportive brace, was invited to share his story with an audience of conservationists, local residents, and media representatives. Standing beside Dr. Rivera and Officer Olivia Grant, Daniel recounted the fateful day on Highway 66 with raw emotion. "I never imagined that in the midst of despair, a tiny creature could remind us of hope," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Luna did more than save my life, she reminded us all that nature has a language of its own, one that speaks of resilience, compassion, and an unbreakable bond." The audience was visibly moved. Many wiped tears from their eyes as they listened to Daniel's heartfelt account. Olivia, standing at the front of the gathering, felt a profound connection to both Daniel and Luna. For her, this experience had transformed routine duty into something far greater, a lesson in humility and the extraordinary capabilities of the natural world. In the weeks that followed, Luna's story continued to captivate hearts far and wide. Donations poured in to support the Wildlife Ambassador Program, and local schools organized field trips to the center. Visitors marveled at Luna's intelligence as she solved enrichment puzzles, navigated her spacious enclosure, and occasionally offered a gentle nuzzle to those who approached with respect and kindness. One afternoon, while the sun was beginning to set in a blaze of orange and purple hues, Olivia found herself alone with Luna near an observation window. The bobcat's eyes met hers, and in that silent moment, an unspoken conversation passed between them, a shared understanding that transcended words. Olivia whispered, "You've taught us that sometimes, the wild has so much more to offer than we ever expected." Luna, in her quiet way, seemed to nod, as if affirming the truth of Olivia's words. As the center prepared for another day of visitors eager to witness the marvel of Luna and the thriving ecosystem of the Wildlife Ambassador Program, the legacy of that fateful day on Highway 66 continued to grow. It was a legacy not just of survival and rescue, but of an enduring relationship between humans and the wild, a reminder that even in our modern, bustling lives, nature always finds a way to remind us of its timeless wisdom and boundless compassion. What do you think is the most powerful element in the bond between humans and wildlife, and how does it inspire you?